We in effect tonight. Yes, we are. Watching, flipping back and forth between Cleveland and Orlando and Boston and Dallas. Those two guys, those two teams I'm flipping back and forth between. And it should be some high-level basketball tonight. 100% it should be. I'm definitely feeling these two contests tonight. There should be some high-level basketball. Dallas has been playing good. Not only has Dallas been playing good, but Boston is still the best team in the league. Still got the best record in the league. Still been rolling. So Luka is healthy. Luka is ready to rock. Let's find out some stuff tonight. Absolutely. Definitely find out some stuff tonight. I'm going to close this window really quickly. Excuse me for a second. Close this window. Guys. There we go. Where were we? I'm sorry. Where was I? So like I was saying, I was kind of flipping back and forth between Cleveland and Orlando. I was watching Philly and San Antonio for a little bit, but I got wrapped up in Dallas and I got wrapped up in Orlando and Cleveland. And excuse me, I'm going to turn that Orlando Magic game back on. I'm going to turn that Philly San Antonio game back on because apparently we got some action. Yeah. I'm going to get back to that. Where is it? I'm going to turn the Philly game back on because we got some really good action going on tonight. So I'm going to find out what I'm dealing with these two. So anyway, I want to talk tonight about All-Star game, All-Star starters. What's more impactful to a player? Being an All-Star or being an All-Pro? What is more impactful? Because I'm looking at the All-Star game this year. In the Eastern Conference alone, right? In the Eastern Conference alone, who are the All-Star starters? Who are the guards that are going to start in the All-Star game? I think Donovan Mitchell is fourth. I think it's Donovan Mitchell at 4. I think it's Trae Young at 2. I think Damian Lillard is 3. I think Trae Young is 2, and I think Halliburton is 1. I think Jalen Brunson is at 5 or 6, something like that. Something like that. And so I wonder when I think about the All-Star game, who did I vote for? I thought Donovan Mitchell should have been starting in the All-Star game. That's me. I think he's having another career year. Tyrese Halliburton, he's another one. I think he should have been starting in the All-Star game. Either him or Trae Young. One of those two guys should have been starting in the All-Star game. In the front court, it was Jason Tatum, Giannis, and Joel Embiid in the East. So that's pretty impressive, right? That is pretty impressive to the masses from what I'm watching. I think Joel Embiid is having a career year. Not only do I think Joel Embiid is having a career year, I think he's very much in the conversation to be the league MVP. So Greek, you don't have any leverage to say anything to me. You don't. And here's why you don't have any leverage to say anything to me. Number one, your boys got bounced in the first round of the playoffs last year. And the year before that, Tatum showed your boys the door. So you don't have any leverage to talk to me. So do yourself a favor. Humble yourself and get your crew together. That same Detroit Pistons team that scored almost 140 on you. So don't talk about anybody freezing up, because the free throw line to Giannis is like kryptonite to Superman. So we absolutely doing that. Hell yeah, we doing that. Yes, we are doing that. Your boys got bounced in the first round of the playoffs last year. You didn't lose, you got bounced. And then the year before that, you lost against Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics. So stop talking to me like your boys are just head and shoulders above everybody. You got a better player. I won't argue that. But he freezes up too. He's absolutely frozen up. So stop talking to me. Do yourself a favor and stop talking to me. Stop it. Knock it off. So like I was saying, when I think about the All-Star game, right? When I think about the All-Star game, I think about who. When I think about the All-Star game, I think about who is worthy of being an All-Star more than anything. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about who is worthy of being an All-Star. So if you think about the guards in the East, right? Think about the guards in the East. Halliburton, Trae Young. I wouldn't even put Damian Lillard over Donovan Mitchell or Jalen Brunson, to be honest with you. I know the fans vote, and it's really impactful. I do know that. But I'm not putting Dame over both Donovan Mitchell or Jalen Brunson. I'm not putting him over those two guys. I'm not. I'm just not. I don't think that he's been playing better than those guys. And I don't think that he's having more of an all-star year than those guys. I don't. So who deserves to be an all-star? I think those four guys will be all-stars. I'd be surprised if Jalen Brunson is not an all-star. I'll be very surprised if Jalen Brunson is not an all-star. If you think about the guards in the East, again, Jrue Holiday is not going before any of those four guys that I said. I think that both Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell, I think they both go before Dame. Both of those dudes, not one of them. I think they both go before Dame. Tyrese Maxey, I think that you can make the argument that he's an all-star. 100% he is. If I think about no guards on the Orlando Magic are going, I'd be surprised if the Chicago Bulls got anybody on. DeMar DeRozan is not an all-star this year. Neither is Zach LaVine. The Brooklyn Nets do not have an all-star this year. Neither do the Toronto Raptors. LaMelo Ball hasn't played enough this season to be an all-star. I'm not on the fence when I say I don't think Washington has an all-star, and I definitely don't think that Detroit has an all-star. I do not think that. So, of the guards in the East, right? Of the guards in the East, Trae, Halliburton, Mitchell, Dame, Brunson. Those are the five guys. And I think that of those five guys, I'm sorry, and Maxey. I can't leave Maxey out. I'm sorry. And Maxey. I can't leave Maxey out, and I won't leave Maxey out. Of those guys, I had picked Halliburton. Excuse me. I had picked Halliburton and Donovan Mitchell to start. So those are my two guys that I picked to start. But it's obvious that both Halliburton and Trae Young are going to start. I'd be surprised if Donovan Mitchell started. I don't think he's going to start. Now, as far as the front court, I don't think that there's an argument in the East. In terms of starters, I don't think there's an argument in the East for anybody else other than Giannis, other than Tatum, Giannis, and Joel Embiid. Of those three guys, I don't think that there's an argument for anybody else in terms of starters. As good as Bam has been, as good as Buckets has been, they're not having the season they're not having the seasons that these guys are having in terms of front court players. I thought Evan Mobley would have been an all-star this year. I felt like he was on his way to being an all-star this year, but he got hurt and he was out for 2 months, so he's out. Jason Tatum's going to be an all-star. He's starting in the all-star game. Giannis is starting in the all-star game, and Joel Embiid is starting in the all-star game. I think the reserves, I think Julius Randle is an all-star this year. In terms of forwards, I think Julius Randle is an all-star this year. 24-10. The Knicks are a top 6 seed. He's been playing really well. So I think Julius Randle is an all-star. But with that being said, of the 5 guys, Halliburton, Trae Young, Tatum, Giannis, Joel Embiid. Is there any, in your estimation, is there anybody on this roster, anybody on that 5 that you don't think should be there? Is there anybody that you look at on that roster and say, in those first 5 guys, is there anybody that you see that you say, this dude shouldn't be here? Because I don't think that there's anybody on that 5 that I don't think should be there. So if you got Halliburton, Young, Tatum, Antetokounmpo, Embiid, of those 5, who shouldn't be there? I personally had Donovan Mitchell starting. That's who I had starting in the All-Star game. That's the one guy that's the one guy that I think is going to be starting in the All-Star game. That I would have starting in the All-Star game. I'm having a difficult time though with Trae not being an All-Star. I mean, he's almost 30-10. Good luck keeping him off the All-Star team. Good luck keeping him off the All-Star team. Because when you get to this stretch where, I mean, Atlanta, don't get me wrong, Atlanta isn't very good. They're at the bottom of the play-in tournament, but they got a top 5 point guard in the league. And the reason why their head is above water is largely due to that top 5 point guard. He's the main reason, you know, they got a 27-11 guy. 27-11. He could do a better job in taking care of the basketball. His shot selection could be better. It has not been. And that's a reoccurring theme for him. But that's a reoccurring theme for him. I mean, Joel Embiid is a load. Let me tell you guys. Joel Embiid is a load. Man, he has a lot to deal with. But I personally think, on a quick side note, I think Wemby's going to be the best defensive player in the game at some point. I actually think he's going to be the best player in the game at some point. Forget defensive player. I think he's going to be the best player in the game. I don't think he's going to be the best big man. I think he's going to be the best player in the game at some point. I'm not on the fence about that. So, you know, Super Chats run the show here. So, King Chroma says, you should make an appearance on Gil's Arena. Nah, he don't want me on his show. He does not want me on his show. No, he does not. I have a difficult time with dudes who I have a difficult time with dudes that just yap all the time. I do have a problem with that. Yep, I do. So, but I think Wemby's gonna. I 100% believe he's gonna be the best player in the league at some point. But what? And if you think about the Western Conference, right? Who are the guards in the Western Conference? Who's starting in the West? Luka, Curry, and what about your front court? James, KD, Joker. That's your front court. Nice job, big man. Nice job, big man. Nice job, Joker. So who of these five? Luka, Curry, James, KD, Joker. Who's coming off that five? I think Curry was second in votes. If I'm not mistaken, I think Curry was second in votes. Of all the of all the guys in the Western Conference, I think Curry was second in votes. It was James, second or third. Because I know James overall led all players in the Western Conference in votes. And then Luka was after him. But in terms of guards, I think Curry was second in votes. Right? I think that's the case. So with that being said, who should be starting? Who comes off? Does SGA start? Does SGA start? And if SGA starts, right, that means that who comes off? Luka ain't coming off. Curry? Does Curry come off? Really quickly, King Kramal said you and McCants would not get along at all. Hey man, I doubt that. I doubt that we would, to be honest with you. I doubt very seriously that we would get along. So, like I said, the All-Star voting. If you look at how it's set up, I can't go off what your team is doing because I've seen guys start in the All-Star game. I've seen guys make the All-Star team, and their team's not very good. DeJounte Murray, I think 2 years ago, he made the All-Star team on San Antonio, and they were at the bottom of the Western Conference. I think they were fighting for the last play-in spot. DeMar DeRozan made the All-Star team, and Chicago was at the bottom of the play-in tournament. So when I think about when I think about being an All-Star, I don't think that I don't factor in winning. I do not factor in winning. Winning does not matter when you're becoming an All-Star. But that's where the divide comes in with being an All-Pro. So I personally think that being an All-Pro is way more impactful than being an All-Star, because you can be voted on to being an All-Star and not only be voted on to being an All-Star, you can play a minimal amount of games, and it's primarily for the fans, right? It's primarily for the fans, which I get that. But when you're an All-Pro, you're the best of the best. You are at the top of the league. You are, especially if you're an All-Pro consistently. Like, you could be a B player who had an A year, like Isaiah Thomas, for example. Right? Isaiah Thomas is a prime example of a B player who had an A year in the 2016-2017 season. He was a B player who had an A year. And he never saw an All-Star game again. He never saw an All-Pro team again. So with that being said, when you are consistently an All-Pro, that means that you're playing at a higher level than when you are an All-Star. Because you can have a minimal amount of games. You can play 20 games. You can play 30 games and still be an All-Star, because you can get voted on by the fans. Even without the new restrictions. Like, if you're an All-Pro or playing at an All-Pro level, I think that's way more impactful on a player and on his team. And I think guys are looked at differently when you playing at an All-Pro level as opposed to playing at a All-Star level. because I think there's tiers. I think an all-star and an all-pro are two different guys. Because an all-pro, I feel like an all-pro, I feel like he raises his level. I think there's a different level that he can go to. Now, don't get me wrong. I've seen some all-pros fizzle. I've seen some all-pros that have fizzled. But I think when you're an all-star, I don't think it's just what you did like in a half a season. It's also what you can teach. This is what I mean when I talk about it being consistent. This is exactly what I mean when I talk about an all-pro being consistent, because an all-star being consistent. Because if you make the all-star team 1 year, like I said, you're a B player who had an A year. But when you're consistently an all-star, right? When you're an all-star 4 or 5 years, well, that matters. 100% it does. But when you're an all-pro, 4, 5, 6 years, that's a pretty big deal. I think that that's a bigger deal than you being an all-star, because I think your level of play has to get raised. What's 2024, King Krama? What is 2024? Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about the Olympic team. I must have missed the first part of this. The first part of this is, what is your 12-man team for the Olympics in 2026? It depends on who is interested in playing. That's what it depends on. Because remember, I think the Olympics are in 28, if I'm not mistaken. Because next summer, or is it? I think this summer they're in Paris, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think this summer it's in Paris, and then the Olympics again is in 2020. It's in Los Angeles. So I'm not. It depends on who's interested in playing. I definitely think Anthony Edwards is going to be on the Olympic team. It is this summer, right, Bashara? Yes, it's this summer. It's this summer. I thought it was this summer. Sure. And in 2028, that's 4 years from now. So who are the American players? Who are the American players that are going to be interested? Like James is going to be gone. KD, I think, is going to be gone in 4 years. Curry, I think he's going to be gone. So who does that leave us with? Right? Who does that leave us with? Guys like Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, Americans, right? Guys like Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, American-born players, Jaren Jackson, and depending on who comes in, right? Depending on who comes in, Jalen Williams, Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Halliburton, Brunson, guys like that. Bam. These are guys. Ja, if he wanted to play, maybe DeAndre Ayton, Jalen Green, LaMelo Ball, Trae Young. If Trae Young if Trae Young is still around during that time, Book. It depends on it depends on who's around. So, but I want to hear from you dudes. I do. I want to hear from you dudes. Who's starting in the All-Star game this year? And what's more impactful? Being an All-Pro or being an All-Star? I'm all ears, because I think being an All-Pro is a bigger deal than being an All-Star. I feel like being an All-Star, if you're an All-Star, you can be an All-Star for a year, 2 years, and you can have a really good season or two, but like being an All-Pro, you have to play at that level for the entire year, and you got to continuously do that. I don't think that that's something that you can just do once and really be respected. Nope, that's a brick. Let's get back to Joel Embiid. Let's do that. Yeah. I want to get back to Joel Embiid. As much as I wouldn't mind watching this Boston game, let's get back to Joel Embiid. I was watching Cleveland and Orlando. That was also a damn good game. So, how am I feeling about Jason Tatum averaging 20 a game over the last 4 games and shooting 30%? I don't feel good about it. No, I do not. I do not feel good about it. Last night was a game that I watched where he looked like he was going through the motions. He looked like he was just there. I didn't feel good about it. But I'm still riding with him. I am. I'm still riding with him. And I might not like what's going on right now, but I ain't one of these people that just jumps ship and, yo, get off the train. Nah. I'm still riding with him. He's still my guy. Now, at the end of the season, if they don't get it done, I'm still not completely off the ship. It's just I got to start looking at you different. Now, I know that it took Jordan 7 years to win it. It took Olajuwon 10 years to win it, right? It took plenty of these dudes a long time to win it. You know, Jabbar won it in year 2. He didn't get back. He didn't win it again for 8 years. After that, 9 years, 9 years before he won it again. It took him 9 years to get back and win it again. It took Olajuwon 10 years to do it. So this isn't something that's I don't think this is something that's just given to dudes. And you definitely got to be more patient with guys. But with the crew that Jason Tatum has had, they should have won it by now. They've been close. They've definitely been close. 100% they've been close. But I want to know what's more impactful. I'm listening. What's more impactful in your being an All-Pro or being an All-Star? I'm listening. What up?
What's good, Chill? I would definitely say an All-Pro, aka All-NBA, is definitely more impactful.
Right.
That's the elite of the elite. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
That's your top 15 player in the league, basically, at that point.
Right.
All-Stars, it's like you could be, I don't know, like, you know, growing up, I always looked at the All-NBA teams. Like, I always just thought if I saw a guy that was a 10-time All-NBA first team, and I looked at someone who was a 10-time All-Star, like, I'm just going to look at it like that 10-time All-NBA first team dude, he was consistent. Like, he was top-notch, elite.
Right.
But still All-Star level players are still, nothing to be frowned upon.
Correct.
But to answer your question, definitely an All-NBA player.
I just think that an All-Pro, like you just said, like a 10-time All-Pro, to play at that level, for a decade, that's an all-time great. To play at that level for half a decade, you can make the All-Star team 2 or 3 times. But if you're an All-Pro 6, 7, 8 years, you playing at that level, right? You're playing at that level for almost a decade. And I'm the best of the best. That's what I remember before we were able to have the information that we have today. Before I was able to do that, I was able to either watch games or see the All-Pro team. That's who the best players in the league were.
Yeah.
And a lot of those guys were All-Stars. But the guys who were All-Pros, that's who we considered the best players in the league. So as good as Mark Price was, being an All-Star, we ain't talking about him like we talked about Stockton. We ain't talking about him like we talked about Isaiah. Even though he did make the All-Pro team a couple times. But there were guys who were staples on the All-Pro team. Staples. So I'd have to say that an All-Pro team is definitely more impactful for a player than being an All-Star.
The All-Star players this year, man, it's gonna be tight, man. It's really competitive for those All-Star slots.
Right.
Real competitive for those All-Star.
Well, think about the East. Well, think about the East. So the guards, Halliburton, Young, Donovan Mitchell, Dame, Maxey, Brunson,
insane.
Right? So these are the guys. These 6 guys are basically vying for 4 spots on an All-Star team. These 6 guys. Who's starting of them 6 guys? Who's starting? I think Halliburton is a given. Halliburton starts. Who's the other guard?
Oh, that's so tough, dude.
Now remember.
Now see, I look at it as old school wise, like your cousin Shaq. Record to me is like a tiebreak. How good your team is, like you could be like, to me, I might have to go Donovan Mitchell.
Right.
That's
why I think
especially with how they started,
starting in the All-Star game.
That's why I think too hot, and they've been playing really good basketball.
They about to win their 8th straight tonight. That's a league record.
Yeah, so
that's the best in the league right now.
Yeah, so
and he's having another career year this year too, by the way.
Yeah, I might have to give the nod to him.
Right.
Him and Hallie.
In the East. Now, some people will say Jalen Brunson over Donovan Mitchell.
Oh.
26 a game.
Yeah, man.
Doing work.
Yeah, but this is probably the best Donovan's. Like, I'm not gonna hold you. When I saw Donovan last year, I was like, he plateaued. Like, this is as good as he's gonna get.
Right.
And he's actually been better this year.
Better.
So
been better this year.
Yeah. So it's like, man, I really underestimated his projection. You know what I mean? Like, he's really him. Like, he nice.
When I said
certified bucket.
When I said that he was the best 2 guard in the league, and people said, "Yo, OG, you nuts for saying that he better than SGA," and I'm thinking, have you seen this dude over the last couple of years? Like SGA, like we wasn't talking about SGA like this. We don't get me wrong. I think SGA is phenomenal. We wasn't talking like this about SGA 2 years ago when the Utah Jazz was the #1 seed in the Western Conference, and Donovan Mitchell didn't even make the All-League team, and he led them in scoring, was 2nd in assists, and 3rd in rebounding. Didn't even make the All-League team. That's never happened before, ever. Never happened. Never. So he's playing at he's having a career year this year. I think he's averaging the most assists in his career this year. He's 2nd in the league in steals, which he came into the league, by the way, as a defender. Nobody talks about the fact that he came into the league as a defender. I mean, he was an all-ACC defender. He was an all-league defender in the ACC. So,
you get gritty with it.
I have a difficult time with him. I thought he should have been 1st team All-Pro last year, to be honest with you.
Over SGA?
Yes, I thought he should have been 1st team All-Pro last year. He had a career year. Cleveland finished in the top 5 in the East. They was a play-in team the year before. He gets on the crew. They're a top 5 seed in the East. He had a career year. He never averaged that many points in Utah. Never shot the long ball like that when he was in Utah. I think he was right around the same in terms of his free throw percentage, but he had a career year in terms of assists. Everything was a career year last year, and they made the playoffs. The fact that Oklahoma City didn't make the playoffs, when you talk about being a 1st team All-League performer, my man, winning matters.
Always.
Winning matters.
Always.
Because we're talking about you, the best guard in the league.
Me and you could go all night rambling off great guys who got empty stats on crappy teams. Like, yeah, they're great plays, but do they mean anything? You know what I mean?
It's
do they
empty.
mean anything?
It doesn't mean nothing. It doesn't. Yeah. So, all right, brother. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too.
Yeah. What up?
What up, Joe? You hear me?
What's up, brother? What's going on?
It's all good, man. How you doing?
Good.
All right. So you talk about the conversation between All-Star, All-NBA. Yes,
sir.
All-NBA. It's All-NBA, to be honest. I mean, you can look at some of the guys who've made multiple All-NBA teams and multiple All-Star teams. And I think if to be a good player, in my opinion, you need to at least make. If you have, say, 5 All-Star appearances, you need to have at least a third of them be All-NBA, in my opinion. So at least
a third of those. So if I was a 5-time All-Star, I got to be at least a 2-time All-Pro.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%.
That's fair.
Yeah, so because if you look at something like Joe Johnson, it's just interesting to me. He was a 7-time All-Star, but no All-NBA selection.
0. Not one time did he make the All-Pro team. Not once.
No, not once. And like you say, okay, like who would he have made it over? Like, okay, it would have been LeBron, would have been Paul Pierce. I'm trying to think of maybe Paul George, maybe. I'm trying to think of who would have been that forward in the mid 2000s, late 2000s.
Carmelo Anthony, guys
Carmelo
like that.
Anthony.
Yeah, those are the guys he's going up against. James, you know, when KD had showed up in 2007.
KD, yeah,
guys like that.
Paul.
Guys like that.
Yes. I think it depends. It's hard to say because I think especially when you have guys like Joe Johnson who, they're good players, but they're not necessarily the most impactful on the planet. But like his teams are always making the playoffs, so it's, you can kind of say, all right, then he's a good player. Same with Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh I think was he made 11 straight All-Star teams from I think 2006 to 2016.
He made the All-Pro team once, maybe. I think he made the All-Pro team once.
And I think it was
he made it
2009. I think 2009 and 2010 Chris Bosh made it. And so I think it can depend, and I think most of the time you look at these, people who are all NBAs, those are the guys who are going to be your needle movers, the guys that are going to get you to win championships. So if you make all NBA first team, there's a precedent for that. There's usually no precedent for like multiple time All-Stars being the lead on a team without making all NBA selections. That's why Paul Pierce needed Kevin Garnett. He needed that all NBA player. Same with Ray Allen. Kevin Garnett was what made it stir the Boston Celtics, that they need that elite all NBA first, second team member, all defensive team member. So it's much more important. And I think also making the all NBA team against your peers is another thing as well. I think that is important. Like you can make an all-star team with great players and then you can just be one of the pack, but with an all NBA team, sometimes you have to beat certain guys out to make an all NBA first or
That's where I'm at with it. That's where I'm at with it right there. And even if you don't beat a guy out to be first team, right, or second team, you have to be at minimum playing at an all-pro level. You have to be playing at that level. And a guy like Joe Johnson, who, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a reason why they call him ISO Joe. He was a bucket
ISO Joe.
Don't get me wrong. There's a reason why they called him ISO Joe. But when you think about his game and his ability to get buckets, was he doing that more than KD?
No.
Like who comes off that list? Does Carmelo Anthony come off that list? Does James come off that list?
Hell no.
Like I'm thinking about the better small forwards during that time. Paul Pierce, right?
No.
Paul
George. Pierce didn't make it that much though. I think Pierce only made it 3 times.
I think Paul Pierce is a 2-time All-Pro. If I'm not mistaken.
2 times, okay.
Yeah, I think he's a 2-time All-Pro. I think Dwayne Wade is a 4-time All-Pro, if I'm not mistaken. But when I think about the small forwards during that time, because that's where Joe Johnson was. And don't get me wrong, Amar, I used to watch him. He used to come down here when they used to play the Miami Heat. And you ever watch when lions, like the lioness, when she picks up her cub by the back of that fur on the back of the neck?
The nape, yeah.
That's what he used to do to Dwayne Wade. He used to snatch him by that collar and drag him right down to the block and abuse him. Yeah, Dwayne Wade couldn't do anything with him.
I mean, and he would get 6'7" with guard skills.
And he would get right to it too. If you ask Dwayne Wade of the guys that he struggled with, one of the first guys he'll tell you, I had hell trying to deal with Joe Johnson. Yeah, he will tell you that. But the difference is exactly what you just mentioned. When you're talking about being an all-pro, I'm a top 15 player at minimum.
Yeah.
At minimum, I'm a top 15 player. So can I say that Joe Johnson, at any point during that time, was he a top 15 player?
No, he wasn't. No, wasn't even close. Wasn't close. I think same with Chris Bosh as well. I think you look at those guys. Chris Bosh, you could make an argument for. I'm not gonna if you say to me Chris Bosh was a top 15 player in his prime, I'd have said, all right, that's not a bad argument. I think you can say that, but I do think I think Joe Johnson's the best argument. I think you just watch his game and you just think, he's cool, he's good, but he's not one of the elite players. He doesn't necessarily do anything elite outside of score. And I think his impact on the game wasn't necessarily the highest. I think I like Joe Johnson. Thought he was an amazing player for what he did. But again, it's just I think when you're an all NBA player, you're now expected to kind of move a needle, and we're now trying to start to build around you. And I think, give an example, one example I was kind of go to when I think about all NBA is Isaiah Thomas. Now, Isaiah Thomas made first team all NBA from 84 to 86 with Magic Johnson.
That's a big deal, yo.
That's the greatest point guard to ever do it. Isaiah
Yes.
Thomas is making first team from 84 to 86, and you can
Mm-hmm.
argue that is that is his prime Isaiah Thomas, but I guess he's starts to kind of compete for championships more. 87, I think he's in the Eastern Conference Finals in 86.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, in 87 goes to the finals, 88, 89, and 90. So yeah, so it makes sense. So you look at the trajectory of those guys who are making NBA first teams. Most of them are trying to be made to go to the finals. Most of them are trying to compete for championships. So
Correct.
I think when you start to look at some of the guys who don't, then when you start to then break it down, and then you start to look at who's the best player of the generation, you say, wow, Joker might be better than Embiid, because Embiid never really made a first team All NBA over Joker. I think maybe last year was the first time he did it. Joker was keeping him out of that first team All NBA position for 2 years, even though he's having seasons averaging 30, averaging 28 and 10 or whatever like that. So I think that's when you start to look at All NBA. But those All NBA players are the needle movers. Those
That's
top
why.
15.
That's exactly the point that you just made right there. That's why when I say not just being an All-Pro matters, like there's a reason why there's a first team, second team, and third team All-Pro. There's a reason for that. Because the guy on the second team didn't play as good as the guy on the first team. That's why I'm not a fan of this whole positionless logic. Because what you're doing is now you're lessening what I'm doing. Now what you're doing is you're taking what I did off the table, and now you're comparing me to Joker. So, for example, with Joker and Joel Embiid, who, from what I understand, I just read in the comic, Joker got 60. I'm sorry, Joel Embiid got 60 in 3 quarters, right?
Damn.
From what I understand, Joe and Joker, he had 42 last night in 3 quarters, right? He had 42 and 12 last night, 42, 12, and 8 in 3 quarters. He played 36 minutes. That's 3 quarters. So
yeah.
This is what I'm talking about when I say that the idea of now making this positionless, now these 2 guys, now what you're doing is you're lessening what one of the other guys is doing, and you're taking that off the table, as opposed to comparing these guys, because these guys are the standard of this position. There's a reason why Patrick Ewing and Olajuwon were up against each other, and David Robinson and Shaq and Jabbar and Moses Malone were up against each other, because this was the standard at the 5 spot. So you just brought up Joe Johnson. So when you think about the forwards during that time, like you just said, James, KD, Carmelo Anthony, Paul Pierce, Tracy McGrady, Jamal Mashburn. Let's see, who else am I thinking about?
Vince Carter.
One more time.
Vince Carter.
Vince Carter. I think Vince Carter was a 2. I don't think he was a 4 man.
He was a 2. I was thinking about that. Yeah, he was a 2.
I think he was a 2 man. I think he was a 2 guard. Sean Marion.
Yep.
Guys like that, right? This is who we're talking about. We're talking about the forward spot, particularly the small forward spot, right? Particularly the small forward spot. So I'm thinking, did he ever play at a level of Peja Stojakovic? Did he ever play at that level?
Probably about the same. You could argue. Probably. You could argue.
Right.
The shooting. But I think the problem with the positionless All NBA teams, I think, is the fact that how do I evaluate who's more impactful between a center and a small forward or a power forward? I think you get rid of the idea of positions in basketball now and evaluating their impact. I'm not saying that at point guard Luka Doncic is more impactful than Joker, but then if you're trying to evaluate that and put those kind of 5 guys in the first team All NBA, like, it's hard for me to evaluate what a center does versus a small forward, or what a center does versus a point guard. And how do we judge then keeping one point guard out for a small forward or a shooting guard? To me, that's the thing that kind of makes it a bit confusing. I think if you compare forward to what you're supposed to do, right. I'm not saying that you have to be traditional in that kind of idea of like what the roles are in the game, but I think to a certain degree we understand what the format of a power forward and a center does.
Right.
So I don't think we should then that Joker is an exceptional center who can pass, but then is he a better passer than Tyrese Halliburton? I don't think that's the case. But then you're going to argue him being that size and passing that well, he may have deserved it over Tyrese. So I think it's going to cause some problems in the long run, I think, to be honest, with the positionless play. But going back to that overall point, if you're an All-NBA player, then especially first or second team, the championship it needs to come soon. It will need to come soon. You're an
because
MVP
that's the level that you're playing at. Sure, I can get with that. Yes, I can definitely get it. That's why I got roasted last year when I was critical of SGA being a first team All-Pro, because I'm thinking, his team didn't make the playoffs. That's not the standard.
I agree.
That's not the standard. When I'm a first team all league performer, at minimum, my team is in the playoffs.
That's best in class.
Minimum.
Yeah, that's best in class. When you're saying you're first team All NBA, that's best in class. Like, I feel you have to be in the playoffs. And to be honest, I think there has to be an idea that your team is going to be in contention. I think maybe they probably overreached with that one. I mean, he was playing well, but I think maybe it was a year too early. Maybe it was an idea of them giving him an All-NBA spot before. Not say he wasn't ready for it. Maybe he needed a third team. But then if your play evaluates that kind of position, do I not give it to you because I think you're too young for it? That's my only contention. If he was playing at that level, then I don't want to be the guy that then says, oh, you know what, don't give Shea that spot because I think he's just a year too far away for it. But I think sometimes as well we can be a bit early with it. I think did Zion did Zion make an All-NBA team?
No, he made the All-Star team though. He did
make the All-Star.
Yes, he did make the All-Star. Which brings me to my next, which to combat what you just said. Is it fair that what they did with Russ in 2017, when him leading the league in scoring and averaging a triple-double, that was essentially the basis of him winning
the MVP,
the league MVP, and it set a bad precedent because now how do we look by not giving it to him again when he did the same thing 3 more years in a row? Because this is essentially why we did it.
Yeah.
So now the same logic goes for a guy like SGA, and I don't mean SGA in particular, but a guy like that who, are we taking winning off the table, and are you just a baller? And that's what an All-Pro is? And winning doesn't matter anymore?
I think it matters from this, that's a tough one. I think with the Russ situation from a historical standpoint and a narrative, this is why I didn't like the MVP, them giving the MVP to Russ. I think the MVP that year should have been James Harden. And I think what happens is that when they do stuff like that, they basically make it that you have an IOU. So they owed Harden that award for 2018. That's what I didn't like about it. So that means he should have been back-to-back MVPs, but because Russ and KD had a breakup and nobody thought anything that Russ would do anything, then they said to Russ, okay, we'll give you this one if you average triple-double. So yeah, you do take winning off the table for context reasons. And I think sometimes when the league kind of promotes somebody early, I think they like Shea's attitude. I think the media is they like what Shea is going to present for the league. So I think they're going to give him the All-NBA spot, especially last year. I'm not even sure who got it over. He got over Curry. So I think he would have been.
Yes, it was him and Luka. I thought Donovan Mitchell was the first team All-Pro last year. I thought that was his spot.
But I think they're not necessarily as high on Donovan Mitchell going forwards. And I think you will generally find with all NBA selections, they'll kind of stop picking you a year earlier than you need to versus an All-Star selection.
So they're projecting now. That's dangerous.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
That's the worst thing you can do. So I think but with Shea, they might be proven right because he's going to make All NBA first team this season.
Right.
So they're going to be back to back years. I think they knew that was going to be the case. Right. But I think it depends. But like I said, what they sometimes do, the media narrative voting, is that they give IOUs to players. Now I think with like Joel Embiid, they obviously with the MVP, he was supposed to get in 2020. Yeah. They didn't give it to him because of the games played, and then he made All NBA second team, I believe. So I think there's where they have a dangerous precedent with All NBA teams. However, it still stands that if you have an All NBA team, for the championship formula always stands: 2 All NBA teams, an All-Star player, and generally speaking, you'll be in championship contention. That's kind of how you'll be, or an all defensive player on your team. If you have both of them as your top 2 guys, typically speaking, you will make an NBA championship run. I think it's kind of been consistent since the 80s.
I think that's fair. And when I think about the All-NBA team, to piggyback off that, that's usually what the All-NBA first team looks like. It's usually a guy whose team is in contention to win the NBA championship. It's usually an all-league defender, and it's usually an MVP. That's what first team All-NBA looks like. It's
That's if you're not all
at no,
three.
and at no point, and not just one guy in particular, it could very well be 2 or 3 guys that are first team All NBA that's going on with. But with that also being said, at no point are guys not making the playoffs. Because now what
Oh
we're doing
no,
is minimizing it. That at
you can
no
make the
point are we
All-Star
doing
team.
that.
You can make the
You can
All-Star team.
definitely do that.
You can make the All-Star team, but not the All-NBA team. The All-NBA team to me is the top 15 most impactful players at their position. You
It's the
can't
creme
be
de
the
la
most.
creme.
Say again?
It's the cream of the crop.
Yeah, you can't not make the. Now, if it's not, it's hard to say it's hard to say when you're not that good and you miss the playoff. How is it not your fault? Like I'm not saying it is your fault because sometimes team construction is a thing, like McGrady,
Sure.
but
Or
you have to be a part of making.
Brian in 2005. I
Yep.
don't think there's an argument, Amari, in 2005 that Kobe Bryant was the best 2 guard in the league. I don't think that there was an argument for that. But his team did not make the playoffs. He did not make first or second team All NBA. He was third team All NBA that year. But he made first team All NBA the year before that. You know why? Because they were winning. Team made the playoffs.
Yeah. But they gave him a penalty for that because now we do have to judge your impact. If I'm putting you in that All NBA selection, it's hard for me to justify why I shouldn't put who was in the All NBA second team in 2005. That would have to Google that. But if it's hard for
the 2005 All NBA team, first team was Nash, Iverson, Dirk, Duncan, Diesel. Second team was Wade, Allen, James, Garnett, Stoudemire. Third team was Bryant, Gill, Tracy McGrady, Sean Marion, Ben Wallace. That was the All NBA team in 2004, 2005.
That's crazy to think that Ray Allen made an All NBA team higher than Kobe Bryant.
And you know why? Seattle made the playoffs that year.
They did.
That's why. And not only did Seattle make the playoffs, I think they won a series. If I'm not mistaken. I think he got them. I know for a fact he got them to the playoffs. And that matters. And at no point, and this is the last, and I got to get going tomorrow, but let's be clear about one thing. At no point did I ever think Ray Allen was better than Kobe Bryant.
Hell no. But you gave Kobe a penalty charge, but also as well, I think that season Kobe did only play 65 games, so I think that might have been the reason. So that might have been the reason why they said to him, okay, they said fair team. But again, this is a lot of All NBA teams are based on projections because they gave like some of those first All NBA teams they gave to Luka. That was you're gonna be the face of our league. They gave him that first NBA selection in 2021 in his second season, and that's difficult. That's difficult to do, especially if you haven't come close to winning a championship yet, and we're still giving you those selections. Something has to give, in my opinion.
Facts, man. All right, Amari, good to talk to you, brother. No doubt. Yep. Let me get back to I was flipping between. I was watching Cleveland earlier, and they basically got the Magic up almost 40. Cleveland is the hottest team in the NBA right now. This is 8 straight that they're about to win tonight. 8 straight that they're about to win tonight, and they are rolling. They're moving up in the Eastern Conference. I had them at number 3 before the season started. That's where I had them at. And when they get Mobley back, when they get Darius Garland back, in the words of Mr. Marlo Stansfield, that's one of them good problems. That's not a bad problem. That's one of them good problems to have. So nice pass. Nice pass. What up? What up?
Hello, can you hear me?
What
up? Hey, Chill. I think that being an All-Pro is more important, or at least it's more significant to a player than being an All-Star. Because, I mean, if you look at how we talk about the all-time greats, one of the first accolades that we talk about is being an All-Pro, right? So that's what I think. I think that, usually being an All-Pro is more significant and more important than being an All-Star, because you can get voted, like you said, you can get voted into it.
When I think about being an All-Pro, that's the standard. Being an All-Pro, that's the standard for being a great player. I mean, being an All-Star, don't get me wrong, being an All-Star, I think means a lot. I'm not gonna argue that being an All-Star doesn't mean a lot, because being an All-Star, I think it's lessened its value today than what it did in the past because the All-Star game has become a joke. But I still think that the All-Star game is significant to be able to say, yo, I'm an All-Star. I do think that. But when I'm voted in as an All-Pro, that means I'm playing at an All-Pro level the entire year, especially if I'm voted in as an All-Pro in numerous seasons. That means that I'm playing at this level for multiple years. This isn't a fluke what you're seeing with me. When you see a guy as an All-Pro one time, okay, it's just I won't say it's the same as being an All-Star, but you can have a career year. Isaiah Thomas for the Boston Celtics is a prime example of that. He was a B player. He was a B player who had an A year.
Third in league MVP votes. He was third in league MVP votes. He had to make the All-Pro team.
Right. And he was a B player who had an A year. I never felt like Isaiah Thomas was that guy like that for multiple seasons. Never felt like he was that he was that good. Don't get me wrong. You can have a career year. Latrell Sprewell did it in 93-94, the year Jordan retired. He was first team All-Pro. Never made another All-Pro team after that. Not one time did he make the All-Pro. So with that being said, if you're an All-Pro and you're a consistent All-Pro, we got to talk about you different than if you're an All-Star who played 30 games and got voted on as a starter in half the season, or you got put on as a reserve because somebody got hurt. That also happened.
Well, not only that, Chill, to compound that, I mean, the league also, the All-Pro team is a statement by the league that they're the best. These are the 15 best players in the NBA right now. That's what the statement is. These are the 15 best players right now. That's the statement of the league. And if you look at like specifically the first team All NBA, all of them are making the postseason, and they're usually top 5 teams in the NBA. Usually at least. These guys are winner. These guys that are going into the first team All-Pro category are guys who are winning as well. So winning definitely contributes to being an All-Pro, specifically, higher levels of being an All-Pro. I got a question for you, Chill.
Quick side note: Jason Tatum got 16 points in the first quarter. I just want to put that.
Yeah, and not only that, Chill, two 3-point attempts. Everything else came from the paint and mid-range game. So he completely flipped it around.
He just scored again. He on top of his shit tonight. I can see it.
Yeah, I mean, because he
on top of his shit tonight.
I think that Sam Cassell had a big part of why Jason Tatum has gotten better in the mid-range and has been getting to the basket more often. Because, I mean, he shot pretty bad the last 3 games, 1 for 6, 1 for 9, 1 for 6, and now he's in the mid-range now and going to the basket, and he's scoring right now. I think that Boston can win this game. I think they can too.
I think they can too, 100%. So.
But I did have one question for you, Chill. Who was your favorite wide receiver growing up?
I'm a 49er fan. Jerry Rice was my guy.
Jerry Rice?
Yeah, Jerry Rice and Chris Carter. I dug those two guys. I was a big Chris Carter fan. But Jerry Rice.
Congratulations, Chill. You guys just ended up beating Green Bay a couple nights ago. You guys ended up beating Green Bay. Yeah, you guys are gonna. You think you're gonna beat the Lions?
Yeah, I think we can get them too. Yes, I do. I think we can get them too. 100%.
All right. Well, all right, Chill. You have a good night.
Yep. All right, brother. Good to talk to you. Yep. Is tonight just going to be one of them nights where guys just go off, where you have multiple 50 point, 50 guys? Joel Embiid is what is Joel Embiid at? I think he's at 60. And Cat is at 43 at the half. Tatum has 16 in the first quarter. That 16 could very well turn into, I don't know, 40 for the night. Are we going to have one of those nights? Or is this going to be what are we looking at in tonight's game? In tonight's game, what is the NBA looking at tonight? So I'm interested to see the way the rest of this night folds out, man. Because like I told you guys, we in the dog days of the season. We are in the dog days of the season, and I told you guys. If you don't remember nothing, I told you guys this. The season is broken up into thirds. You got your first 27 games. You got your first 27 games. Teams are trying to figure out who they are. They're trying to figure out rotations. They're trying to figure out who their man is, who their defensive player is, who their rebounders are, what kind of system they're going to run. Is it going to be implemented? Stuff like that. Then you got your second 27 games. This is the dog days of the season. This right here. From around Christmas to the All-Star break. These are the dog days of the season. And if you look at the best teams in the league, right? If you look at the best teams in the league, the teams at the top of the league, go check out the first three teams in the West, the first three teams in the East, or even the first four teams in the West, first four teams in the East, and look at where they are in terms of record. If they're over 500, see who's over 500, significantly over 500 during this time. That's your Eastern Conference and Western Conference representative. Those two teams. See who's been playing the best during this stretch here, because this is the most difficult stretch of the season. The last part, the last 28 games, you already got your rotations down. You've battled through injury. You're getting healthier. You're hitting your stride. The playoffs is coming. Guys are starting to ramp up their games. So, with that being said, this stretch right here is the most important part of the season. So if I'm paying attention to who's doing work during this time, I'm paying attention to teams like the Celtics, Cleveland, Philly. I'm paying attention to teams like that. 100% I am. So, all right, guys, it's about that time for me. It was good to see you guys tonight. I'm here, as you guys know. If I ain't here, I'm on a panel. Weekdays, 11 to 2. If I ain't on the panel, I'm on TikTok in the morning, 9 to 10. And if I'm not there, I'm on Chill with Chill on Wednesday night. And if I'm not on Chill with Chill Wednesday night, I'm here. And if I'm not here, I'm on Fluent and Chill on Thursday night with the lovely Playmaker Haley. On Friday, it's Good Morning NBA on TikTok, 9 a.m. Between 9 a.m. and 9:30, I'm on. So we after it, guys. We absolutely are after it, and I'm after it. It was good to see you guys tonight. I will see you soon. Drink water. Put on a suit. Don't drink and drive. Hey, man, call your mother. Call your mother. I just talked to my mother a couple of days ago. Today is Monday. I just talked to my mother like 3 days ago. Call your mother, man. Call your mother. She's looking for you. So until then, take it night, but take it. It's good to see you guys tonight. Absolutely, it was.